So this week's question is asked by the Dardanius, I don't know how to pronounce it. But here she asks, hello Wim, I have a question about the vibrato on clavichord. As far as I know, I have read somewhere that Bach did use and enjoy the ability of the clavichord to achieve vibrato, adding a more singing quality to the instrument. That's actually very true. Is this true? So yes, that's true. And have you ever played Bach or anything using vibrato on clavichord? In the videos I watched, I have not seen a single instance of you using vibrato, and I was wondering whether this was maybe something that came after Bach's time. Thank you for your time. So Bach, probably meaning CPE Bach, but you could easily draw the line to J.S.Bach, since in my opinion, and that's, I want to make clear, what I'm giving you now is not a compilation of what's written in the sources, is direct input from my experience and how I see this question of the Bebung, because that was the correct German title for the vibrato. I have added the second camera here, which is actually filming the tangents, and I can show you, technically you can see the tangent moving, so you can, without sound almost, and you can hear it. So a real Bebung or vibrato looks and sounds like this. So you see the tangent going up, and then once it hits the string, I have to focus a little bit better that you really can see it, or take one shorter. Okay, let's take this one. It really hits the string. And what it actually does is it just pulls the string, it makes the string a little bit longer, so to say, and that's the reason why you hear the sound, the pitch shifting, making this vibrato. Well, having said that, of course the Bebung is something very much related to the clavichord, but not only related to the clavichord, but you can also have a kind of similar effect, of course, on the violin. Strings sounds, which became in the 18th century very important because of this ability of expression, but also traverse flute, where you can have this, it's hard to say in English, but this kind of sound around the note that can be shifted, can be altered in dynamics. People were looking from the beginning of the 18th century until end of the 17th century to this more expressive sound. And I don't want to diminish the value of a harpsichord, but of course that's something you cannot do on a harpsichord. Same on an organ. You can work with touch, which is incredibly important. Both harpsichord and organ, if played with a bad touch, really no contact between finger and key, you will have bad sound. But on these both instruments you will not have the capability what the clavichord can do, what the traverse flute can do, what the violin can do. So the Bebung is an extreme example for that. Having said this, it's not that much indicated in the scores. Of course, one of the most famous pieces where it is indicated is the Abschied vom Silbermannischen Klavier. That's the piece, the farewell piece that Emanuel Bach wrote when he sold his clavichord for Mr. Grotius, 1781. And it starts like this. So on these notes is the sign of the Bebung. Show you in the video, which is dots with a slur with a bow above. The Bebung, the vibrato, is, in my opinion, the 100% level, so to say, of the expressive tools of the clavichord, which starts at 0% by just giving the note without alteration. So this is just straightforward sound. This is 0%. And from this to this, you have a broad range of all kinds of expressions which you can choose from, and as far as I'm concerned, using constantly. When I shift from 0 to 10% or to 20% or 40 or 50, even 60%, you will not consciously hear it. But all syncopations, all accentuations, everything that you can imagine that a traverse player would do or a violin player would do with this music, you can do on the clavichord in moderate ways, and you will feel it more than you hear it. Let's give you an example for this. You hear? I just gave a quicker, what you call it in English, I just pressed the tone a little bit quicker, a little bit faster, giving it a... It's different from... But it's the same expression, because if I continue doing this, you would have the Bebung. So it jumps out. Instead of... It's enormous, the sound difference. This is really moderate sound. It's beautiful, but this is really trumpet sound. I can exaggerate. You hear? Can even maybe... So what you do here is also something that J.S. Bach is writing about. That you just lift the note over the syncopation. So I give a Bebung, it's not indicated, to express to emphasize the point where it needs to have an accent. On an organ you cannot do it, on a harpsichord you cannot do it. It would sound like this. Nothing to do about clavichord. Even then, I can give it fast attack and it falls on its place on the heavy beat. So we can continue like this for hours, and really that's an essential part on the clavichord. So if you write again that you don't hear the Bebung that much, you're really right, because I don't apply it that often. Realizing also the fact that your YouTube and your smaller speakers and etc., this effect is a little bit lost. But I'm using the effect of the Bebung in very different shades, and I think that's the key, that's the heart, that's the real meaning of the clavichord. And that's the reason, again, that is personal, that from the beginning of the 18th century on, and for me, no doubt that with J.S.Bach, this whole evolution of going towards more expressivity, instruments that have more, like with the Bogenclavier, but that's another issue, that they were looking for this microscopic expressions that was really, really important to them. So the pianoforte comes out of that. It's much more related to the clavichord and to the harpsichord. Having said that, it was a culture of clavier instruments, so keyboard instruments as a whole. And it's not that one day they woke up and turned the page and started all over again. It was constant interference of one another. But that makes the clavichord actually unique, and that's the reason I think that it standed out in the 18th century and kept itself so long from being pushed away by the pianoforte at Beethoven's time, actually late 18th century, beginning 19th century, because musicians and composers were really attached to that kind of micro expression. Anyway, I hope I answered your question with this. Thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing as always and sharing this video, and we see each other very soon again. Bye.